Hi guys and welcome back to a new video. In today's video, I will go through the list of all the most profitable and valuable items that you will be able to craft or farm in the War Within in order to make a lot of gold. And here I will really include any type of item. So one important thing to remember is the fact that some of these items might only be valuable during the first few weeks of the new expansion, and after that they might not be as profitable anymore. So just something to keep in mind, this is a list that I'm doing right now before the release of the War Within, and probably after a month or 2 months in the War Within, this list will be very different. So let's start with this really interesting new bag you will be able to craft, and as you can see, it's Delete Me 29. So this is a really interesting bag. It has a zero quantity of space, which is really good, and definitely something you will be able to make a lot of profit with, because why not? More seriously, the bag in question that I think you will be able to make a lot of gold with is this one right here. And this is really just the new bag that you will be able to use in all your different slots. And this is a 36 slot bag, which is really big. It's a big improvement from the last ones that we had. And this is something that everyone is going to buy as soon as the War Within will launch. And so if you are amongst the first few people who will be able to craft this bag, and to sell it, you will be able to make a lot of gold. And here, one important thing to remember is the fact that in order to craft one of these bags, you will need 4 of the Duskweave Bolts. And so the Duskweave Bolts are also something that are going to be very profitable. As you can see, you can only craft 10 per day. And so it means that there's not going to have that many available in the market. So that's why if you have an alt army and you can choose tailoring, you will be able to craft a lot of these different Duskweave Bolts. And then you can either sell these Duskweave Bolts directly on the auction house, or you can also just use them in order to craft the bag and to sell it everywhere. And remember that with your new Warband bank, you can literally craft a bunch of these different bags and then sell them on all the different realms in your region. So like that, you can really cover a lot of different realms and make tons of profits. Now, while we're talking about tailoring and some of these new bags, the other category of items that is going to be really interesting are all the different epic bags that are linked to specific professions and that will give you some really interesting advantages for these different professions. So these different bags are not going to be super easy to craft. As you can see, you will need to actually use a lot of different materials, and also in order to unlock these different recipes, you will need to actually farm a lot of the new currency and also some of these different artisans RQT. So this is not something that is going to be super easy, and the reason why I think these bags are going to remain super profitable throughout the expansion, or at least throughout the first patch of the War Within, is because it's not something people are going to just be able to mass craft again and again and again. And so it means that these bags are definitely going to be pretty expensive and also pretty difficult to actually craft in mass quantity. So definitely something, again, if you are paying on a tailor, try to unlock some of these different bags as soon as you can, and then hopefully you will be able to make a lot of gold with that. Especially, for instance, if you have the Darkmoon Duffel one that you can craft during the first few weeks, a lot of people are going to use that. And after that, you have like a few others, especially linked to the gathering professions, that will be super useful as well. After that, we have this time a new cosmetic item, and this is a one-handed mace. And as you can see, it's this item right here. This is the extra large Leek. So this is literally a vegetable mace that you can get, and then you can even put some weapon enchant on it and everything, which I think is pretty cool. And basically what's interesting with this weapon is the fact that this is a BoE weapon and it's a cosmetic item. So it means that if you manage to get your hands on it, it's still unknown right now how you can actually get it. But if you manage to get your hands on it, you will probably be able to sell it for quite a lot of gold on the auction house. One important thing to note is, of course, the fact that we don't know if it's going to be easy or not to get your hands on this weapon. If it is easy, then the value is probably going to crash very fast. But if it's difficult, it means that during the entire expansion, you will probably be able to farm this weapon and make a lot of gold with it. And one other thing that I want to insist on is that even if it's easy to farm, during the first few weeks, probably you will still be able to sell it for a lot of gold if you manage to get it in the first people on your realm and also in your region. Because remember, with the Warband bank, you can easily, for instance, farm it on one realm and then put it in your bank and sell it on another realm. So I think this is still going to be a pretty profitable item. during the first few weeks and maybe during the entire expansion. After that, we're of course gonna have the new Crowd Pummeler 230, which is a mount you will be able to craft with engineering, and you will then be able to sell this mount on the auction house. So I do think people will be able to make a lot of gold with this mount, and especially if you are amongst the first few people in your region that can craft a bunch of them and then sell them on all the different realms, you will make millions and millions of gold. Because again, this is a new mount, a lot of people will buy it for sure from the auction house. And this is something that, in my opinion, will remain profitable probably throughout the entire expansion. Now, also, what's interesting with the mount is that all the different materials are also BoEs. And so it means you will also be able to farm and sell all the different materials on the auction house for quite a lot of gold. So for instance, if you're someone who doesn't really want to craft the mount and sell it, but you just want to farm the materials, you will still be able to make a lot of gold just by doing that. Another category of items that, in my opinion, can become profitable are all the different Darkmoon decks. So these are BoE trinkets you will be able to craft and then sell on the auction house. So these different Darkmoon decks are not as powerful as in previous expansions, and so I don't think they're going to be as profitable, but they're still BoE trinkets that are pretty good, and so a lot of people will still buy them during the first few weeks. This is something that, in my opinion, will only remain profitable during the first few weeks and maybe the first month or something like that, but it's not going to be something that you will be able to make a lot of gold maybe 2 months after that. So if you are planning to make some gold with Inscription and with these different decks, try to do it really as soon as you can, because again, the market is going to crash pretty fast and these items are in general not that interesting, and so this is my personal opinion. One thing, of course, to note is that the required level is 70, and so it means that for all the different alts and everything, is definitely going to be a really good item to have, and so definitely people will still buy it throughout the expansion for this reason. But again, I don't think it will be super profitable after a few weeks. And here again, if you can just craft a bunch of these different decks and then flood all the different markets in your region using your Warband Bank, and hopefully you will make tons of profit like that. Now, another category of items that, in my opinion, are going to be very profitable are linked to PvP, and these are these different materials right there. So as you can see, the first one that I think is really going to be super interesting is the Vicious Bloodstone. So this is something that you will be able to get when doing PvP activities, but you can also buy it directly from this vendor for 2,500 honor points. And why this item is interesting is because basically you need one of these Vicious Bloodstone in order to craft most of the different PvP gear. And so it means that any players who will do PvP will need some of these different Bloodstones in order to craft some pretty good gear. So I do think it's something that will be profitable, especially at the beginning of the expansion, and probably is going to crash a little more after that because it's region wide, but still definitely something if you are trying to farm some honor points and you want an extra reason to take this time and farm maybe all the mounts and everything, well, now you will also be able to make some gold by either getting some of these Bloodstones or buying it from the vendor with the honor points. But this is not the only crafting region that you will be able to make some gold with. There is also this one right here, the Forge Combatant's Heraldry. And so this one will allow you to craft some PvP items with an eye level 613 in PvP. And as you can see, you will be able to buy it for 350 honor points. So this one, I'm not sure if it will be region-wide or specific to your realm, but either way, definitely something you will probably be able to make a little bit of gold at the beginning with. And one of the main reasons why you will need a lot of these different items is because, as you can see, if you are trying to craft any of the new PvP items, you will actually need some of them. So here, as you can see, for each of them, you will need to put at least one of these different Forge Combatants Heraldry. So it means that if you are trying to, for instance, make a lot of gold with all the different crafted PvP items, or if you're someone who wants to buy the full set, each time the person will need to put some of these different Forge Combatants Heraldry. And as you can see, you need, for instance, 5 in order to craft this simple item right there. So trust me, there's going to have a lot of people who are going to buy these different items. It's going to have a lot of demand. And most likely you will make a lot of gold with these items. Now, also, just to finish with PvP, if you are trying to make some gold with your honor points, another thing you can do is simply buy the different plans, recipes, and over designs from the vendor, because as you can see, these are BoEs, and so you will then be able to sell them on the auction house for, again, a lot of gold. For instance, if you really want to make tons and tons of gold, I would recommend you to maybe buy the different designs, especially for the ring and the necklace. I think, for instance, if you can do that during the first few hours of the War Within, and especially if you're trying to sell it on a Hyper Realm, you will be able to sell it for a few 100,000 gold. And so it means that just by getting some of these honor points, you will most likely make a lot of gold. So another thing to really keep in mind, I think all these different plants and recipes are going to be profitable. And especially again, the designs from jewel crafting are probably the best ones, with also the cloak from tailoring. Now, probably a lot of you are thinking the different green PvP items are also things that are going to be super profitable. And I do think they will be interesting. But one major change from the Dragonflight expansion is the fact that you can now actually buy some of these different green BoEs directly from the different vendors right there. And so it means that people who are doing PvP will be able to directly buy all these different green items using their honor points. So for that reason, I think it's going to limit a little bit the market and the margin you can do on some of these items, but the crafted BoEs are still going to be profitable. So still something you can consider as well. Another category of items that might become profitable, this one I'm not 100% sure, but still something to consider, all these different Gleeful Glamour. And basically they will allow you to change your race when using the item. So you will be able to craft all the different items with enchanting. I do think there's going to have a market for it. I'm just not sure if really it's going to be super profitable, because probably a lot of people are going to craft these, and probably people will buy some of them, but not like 100, 200 of them. It's very interesting because this one could either go onto a category of very profitable crafts, or something that will just be a little bit interesting but not so profitable. So we'll have to wait to see. But if you are trying to maybe make some gold with enchanting, this might become something you can try, because if you are amongst the first people to craft this different Gleeful Glamour, then probably you will be able to still make at least a decent amount of profit during the first few weeks. After that, we have the usual new raid BoEs. So as you can see, we have all these different BoEs right there. And so these items will definitely be profitable during the first few weeks when the raid will launch. Again, the raid will only launch on September 10. So you have a little bit of time, and remember, you will only be able to farm these different BoEs in normal, LFR, and heroic difficulty during the first month, because all the different mythic ones will be binds when picked up for at least a month, and then they will become BoEs later on. But so all the heroic BoEs from the new raid are definitely going to be super interesting. And now that there is the Warband Bank, you can very easily, for instance, farm them on one realm and then sell them on a hyper realm or on a realm where there is high demand. So it's going to be way easier for everyone to actually make some gold with these different BoEs. So definitely a market I would recommend you to consider, and a good farm to do, especially on September 10 when the new raid will release. And that's one of the reasons why I would recommend you to try and get a good high level during the 2 first weeks, because then you will be invited in order to farm the BoEs in the new raid. We also have this item right here, the Magnificent Jeweler setting. This is one item you can craft with jewel crafting, and it will allow you to add a socket to an amulet or a ring. This is something that was definitely very profitable in Dragonflight, and I'm sure it will still be super profitable. So again, if you have a jewel crafter, try to get your hands on this design right here, and then hopefully you will be able to make some gold by crafting this new item. And linked to this item and also a few other items, what's also interesting is this item from Alchemy. So this is something you will be able to craft, and it will become probably valuable because, as you can see, you will need some of them in order to craft all the following items, including some of the really good new amulets and rings, and also some of the new gems and this setting as well. So definitely, if you're playing on an alchemist, these different Blasphemite are going to be really good. Now, another category of items that was very profitable in Dragonflight are all the different BoE recipes, designs, and other items you can use with all the professions to learn these different crafts. So here, for instance, some of the most profitable ones were the jewel crafting ones. And so you have a lot of new ones in the War Within. So for instance, you have the design for the Binding of Binding, and you have all these other ones. And so these different items are in most cases BoEs, and they will drop from world creatures, from world events, and all of that. And so this is definitely going to be an interesting way to make some gold. You can also make a lot of gold by simply flipping these different designs, on buying them on one realm and then selling them on another realm. So definitely something you need to remember and to consider farming, because again, in Dragonflight, people have been able to make really millions and millions of gold by simply farming and selling these different BoE patterns, plans, recipes, and designs. And here, for instance, one example, this one right there, as you can see, apparently it drops from the theater troop event. So it will most likely be similar to Dragonflight. And for instance, the elemental area, it will drop from specific events, from specific rares, maybe also from specific like chests and everything. And so once we have more information, I'll make sure to make another video on that and to tell you exactly what are the ones you need to really go after and that you can make the most profit with. We also have a bunch of new BoE cosmetic items you will be able to get, and some of them I think could become interesting because they have unique appearances and they're pretty cool. So for instance here, as you can see, you can have as a Held in Offhand this item right here, which I think is interesting. Then you have like, for instance, this screwdriver right there as a one-handed mace. You have like more of these cosmetics. So again, I think these ones are probably going to be similar to the ones from Dragonflight, and you will be able to get them for all the little chests by doing a lot of different activities. So I don't think they're going to be super expensive after maybe a few weeks in the expansion. But at least for the first few weeks, you will most likely be able to sell some of them if you manage to get the most interesting ones and to make some decent gold with it. So again, right now, we don't know how you will be able to get these different items and whether they will be rare or not. But either way, I think it's safe to say that there will have a market for some of these items and you will make some gold if you manage to get some of them during the first few weeks. Now, of course, next to all these different items, you will have plenty of other interesting items. For instance, all the limited crafts that you will be able to do with alchemy are definitely going to be good. You also have all the new consumables, especially the different enchants from enchanting. You also have all the new drums and everything, all these type of things that will allow you to be more powerful. So these are the things that you will especially be able to make a lot of gold when the season 1 will officially be released on September 10 and ahead of that. So there are plenty of other markets that will be profitable. And also, if you are into crafting orders, well, obviously you will also be able to make some gold with crafting orders, especially when crafting all the new gear, all these new like things. You will definitely have a lot of people asking to craft these new items, especially if it's the same as in Dragonflight. Probably all the new rings and amulets and everything from jewel crafting are gonna be in high demand. But these were really the main items I wanted to mention, and I'm sure again there's plenty of other items I might have missed, and so please let me know in the comments what other items you think I should have added into this list and that you think will be very profitable in this new expansion. As I mentioned, again, I will make an update of this video at the end of Season 1 or during Season 1, and each time there are new items added into the game, because these different items are always different from the start of the expansion to the end of the expansion. Some might be way more profitable at the beginning and then not at the end, and some might be very bad at the beginning but more profitable near the end. So it always depends, and that's why it's always important to check the market and see if this is still worth investing your time on your gold before really starting to craft and farm some of these items. Anyway, I will be back very soon with more guides and more videos, and in the meantime, I wish you all a great day. Bye!